So we have some friends from Blairsville, Georgia, who once they found out we were campers, kept telling us how great Vogel State Park is outside of Blairsville.
For years.
Yes, at least 2 years we've been hearing about how great Vogel is. So as soon as we got all 47 of our state parks done in South Carolina, the very first place we looked to go outside of South Carolina was Vogel State Park. It is the most popular park in Georgia, so reservations were hard to come by, but we were able to get a site on a Monday through Friday, so we grabbed it. This video is going to be about our trip, our thoughts of it, and I hope that you enjoy and you like it as much as we did.
So Vogel, I will say, so it's the #1 Georgia State Park. We've been hearing about it for several years, and it lives up to the hype.
Yes.
It is mountains of Georgia. It is beautiful. The park has recently been redone.
Yes,
Like
that
super
was a big
recently.
That was a big plus.
And so it was, the roads in are paved, the sites were all redone with the timbers and gravel, and but still lots and lots and lots of trees.
Yes.
Like they worked really hard to do all the things that they did at that park and not lose hardly any trees. They couldn't have lost hardly any trees. There were so many large trees, lots of shade.
There were several times when I was in the camper that I thought, oh my, a storm must be coming because I don't see any sun. I walk outside and, well, no, it's just the shade of the trees. It sits in a valley between Blood Mountain and I'm going to mess it up. It's not Savage. We'll put it down below. Sits in the valley between these two mountains. There was a battle supposedly between the Creek Indians and the Cherokee Indians, and they said it was such a bloody battle that the creeks turned red.
And Wolf Creek, it sits on Wolf Creek coming out of the mountains down,
Yes.
and so Wolf Creek runs through the campground.
Yes.
Like legit, like our site backed up to this babbling, rocky brook. It was just,
And then it
kind of gorgeous.
It works its way down. There are cabins along, and then it goes down into the lake that we can't pronounce. So we'll
put the name.
We'll put the name down below.
Because we didn't ask. Like legit, we're like leaving, and I was like, we never asked anybody how to say.
We forgot that. Yeah, I'm sure that it's an Indian name, but
it looks like Tralata, and I'm sure that we're not doing that right.
So the park was built by the Civilian Conservation Corps. The land was donated to the state in 1929. There was a family, the Vogel family, that actually lived in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. They owned the land because they had a tannery, and they used bark from the trees in this valley to help tan the leather up in Milwaukee. And they discovered some
different ways of doing
artificial ways of doing it where they didn't need the tannins from the trees, so they didn't need the land anymore. So they donated it to the state. So as soon as the Civilian Conservation Corps was created, this was one of their first projects. And
it's amazing. They built cabins that are still, some of that are still standing.
Nope, there were no. She did. Nope. We clarified that the ranger said none of the CCC structures still stand because they could not maintain them as of the 80s. But the pavilion still sits on the pilings that were the original bathhouse in the lake. That's the only structure.
That's right, because she said she had one that because they're CCC structures, they couldn't even repair them, like using modern tools, so that then they couldn't keep them up properly. Like she was having to use like a hammer and nail in certain areas, and but it still they might not be original CCC structures, but they kept the integrity of that look. And if you've been to CCC parks, you know what I'm talking about. It's that rock, the materials that are found in that's what the CCC used. They used the materials they found
right.
where they were. When they dug ponds, they used the rocks that they found. When they
built the dam.
They built dams. So it's all still. So when they've built new structures, they've kept that look and that integrity of what it looks like.
So they actually have a CCC museum there, and in the kind of keeping with that tradition, the wood that they used to build inside that building came from trees that had fallen because of pine beetles in
but
the
they were
80s.
Trees that were planted by the CCC. So they used the CCC's trees to build the museum. The museum is actually really well done. It's got a lot of stuff that you can kind of look and feel and see. And so there's actually a replica of a fire tower, like if you were at the top, and there's the instrument they would use to triangulate fires. There is a whole section in the middle of like what they would have gotten, like the cot,
clothing,
the outfits, and there was a large surveyor unit attached to this CCC facility. So they had the badges that go with the surveyor unit, the uniform, the surveying.
They also had copies of pictures that people took and sent home. They had letters that were sent home.
And they had reunions there, so they would have events, and so people would bring back like their memorabilia from the CCC or write letters, and so they'd have a picture of the man like as he was at the time, like in the 70s or 80s or 90s when they had these reunions, and then his memories. And they had the copies of the oath that they signed, and even advertising posters, and it's really well done.
It's well done, and all the buildings there are nice. When you come in, the visitor center, when you check in, there's a little store in there. They've got obviously normally your T-shirts and stickers, and they also had camp supplies there, fishing stuff,
ice cream. Kids are always
all that. They're actually getting ready to build a new visitor center on the lake as you come in on the right side. And what is now the visitor center is going to be turned into an education center. So I thought that was kind of neat. They are going to lose a little parking. They said
but they're building some more up. Further up.
They're going to build some parking further up toward the campground. So that should work out well. I'm going to pause here and show our site, and then we'll talk a little bit more about kind of the experience of the campground itself and then what we did. All right, we'll review our Site 55 here at Vogel. I think this is the old 48, but with this remodel, notice, if you will, brand new Wi-Fi stuff, not hooked up yet, but it does have all new service. You see 50 amp, 30 amp, water, sewer. Now notice, come around over here, I had to have my extra sewer hose because it's quite a ways up here where we are situated. Some people are not quite as far back, but we wanted to, well, you'll see. We come around here, you see the timbers. It's pretty level. I think I'm up about 1.25 inches on the driver's side. Plenty of space. Nice timbers all the way back. Public space is behind here. See, I wanted to come back. We got our hammock set up over here. The creek runs behind us. This is one of the things that makes this site so nice. Kids were playing in the creek down there earlier. So the neighbors sitting there enjoying it. It's really nice. There's a little bit of space, not much growth between us and the neighbor over here, but plenty of space for a site. All in all, it's pretty nice. So as I mentioned, these sites have just recently been renovated. They still are not complete because the biggest drawback.
Okay, so the Wi-Fi is like this close. Like the poles are in the ground, the Wi-Fi boxes are up there, and all the wire that's been dug and run is just in a pile at the bottom.
Sitting right there.
So for those of you who work or homeschool while you travel, it was a little. We had no cell service.
There's no cell service up in the campground. There's a little bit down.
And it depends on who you have. Like somebody else, like I have a bar. I'm like I have the SOS thing. Like I have you can send your coordinates to somebody if you fell off the mountain.
It is because it's in a valley. It's hard to get cell service in there.
And there's so many trees. So
that's why they're adding this Wi-Fi. I think once the Wi-Fi gets put in, it's going to be fantastic. But the way that they have come in and remodeled, they've added sewer hookups on all the larger sites. The 25, that loop of 25 foot and shorter
tent
sites and short sites, that is not full hookup.
They have
but all
water
the bigger
and electricity on those sites,
right,
but not
and 50 amp. But
it's really tight. Like you would not want to pull in a big camper in there.
No.
And not even like our size camper.
Yeah.
I mean, we mostly saw vans and tents and hybrid things and pop-ups.
They say you can fit a 25 foot camper in there. I wouldn't feel ours is 26 foot. I would not feel comfortable just making that drive in there. It's tight. A couple of those turns.
And the one backside to get out, I mean, it was super steep.
Yes. So that does lead to one of the other issues of Vogel. It's the roads getting in. We came up 129 from the south side, and that road was steep. My transmission, it made it. My transmission was a little bit, was not happy, but it got us up there safely. And then you kind of cross over where the Appalachian Trail
actually starts. You come right where the Appalachian Trail starts.
And then you're coming steep down into the park, and you've got to slow it down.
We were smoking all kinds of smoke.
Yeah, with the brakes, the brakes were getting tested, but we made it safely. On the way out, we decided instead to go west to Ellijay and then took Highway 52. That was much more comfortable.
Yeah, there wasn't anything that made us nervous, but I mean, you do feel like you're about to just show back up at Vogel. Like you kind of come around and you're like,
did
are we just gonna see? So I mean, it added time, but you have to kind of consider like all the circumstances. Like, yes, we're gonna add 45 minutes, but
yeah, it was gonna add about 45 minutes to an hour, but it takes us onto I-85 further west, closer to Atlanta. And my GPS said there was an accident on I-85, so it routed us further off the back roads, and it ended up adding about 2 hours because of the accident. It would have been an hour had it not been for the accident. But that's Atlanta.
I will say, it wasn't a bad, like, the roads were not bad. The roads were, very much not the super steep, like coming over Blood Mountain. But I will say, too, there was a lot of stuff on those roads that there wasn't on the mountain roads. So if you had time, if you weren't trying to like bust it to get somewhere else, like especially in the fall, there was lots and lots of like apple stands, and you pick apple places or peaches. Farms to visit, peaches. There was several antique kind of like Barney villagey things. I mean, so there was like, you could have broken it. Like we could have stopped and kind of wandered through some of those little. So there was some cool, and all of them were like big parking lots and barn kind of spaces. So you could have done some fun things too if you were looking for some things to do.
Speaking of things to do around, as we mentioned, we have friends that are from the area. They kind of gave us a list of things to do while we were there. I always like to go get a bite to eat somewhere. We went to Sawmill Place,
which also advertised in the map, and so Claire was like, "We have to go here." It advertised in the map, and it was on our list, and it was
fantastic,
fully worth it.
And Cotty spilled their orange juice on Mama.
Yes, great breakfast. They try to use as much local products as they can.
And they even have a picture on one wall of like all their farmers that they use, and like the fields or with their chickens or
it was fantastic. Yes.
Yeah. Clara spilled her orange juice while we were there, but it was fine. They were lovely about it. It was not a big deal.
So highly recommend that. One of the other things is Brasstown Bald, which is the highest peak in the state of Georgia.
We've talked about this in other videos. When you have a fourth grader, you get the state park or the national park pass for free for your family, or if you have a national park pass, whether a military or you've bought one for some seniors, or you bought one for your family, they have extended that national park pass to not just be national parks, but to be national historic sites, as well as national forests and other national things, mainly to help us East Coasters who don't have but like 5 or 6 national parks. So keep that in mind. If you have a national park pass, make sure you have it on you when you're traveling, because we did not. And as we went into Brasstown Bald, the lady was like, "Oh, if you have a national park pass, it's included." So I mean, it was $8 an adult to go, so it wasn't that big of a deal. But it would have been included
Yeah.
if we had our pass with us. So that's just another kind of FYI. If you've got your pass, make sure that you just kind of keep it with you when you're traveling.
Yes. That is, you don't take your trailer. That is, you drive there. It's not RV friendly. It's about a 15-20 minute drive from the park. It's not that bad. But once you get there, and in order to drive up, put it in lower gear. Do not stay in automatic, and do it going up and coming down. It's a very, very steep drive. You get to the parking area, and you can either hike your way up, or there's a shuttle bus that can carry you up.
The hike is, and they say it's 0.6
6
miles. So in our mind, it's 0.6 miles. That's like nothing. But when there's a picture, and we'll make sure we post, of the kids in the parking lot and where we went. And when you think about that was only 0.6 miles, like it was straight up 0.6 miles. It took us like 35 minutes to get up and like 12 minutes to get down.
Yeah,
that just tells you like
it's as steep of a hike up as you just drove. So it's going to take some effort. And once you
there's
get
lots of benches and rocks that
Yes.
stick out that you can sit down on.
yes. Then when you get up there, there is a neat little visitor center.
Lots of dioramas and history and little videos that play and interactive information.
They actually had a scavenger hunt for the kids to do throughout, and when they completed their scavenger hunt, they got an activity book. They also have a little theater up there where they play a movie. The particular one that was playing while we were there was about the weather
The Four Seasons there.
and about
In the cool cold. Mountain streams bear away the melting snow into the green watersheds and
it shocked me that even though it's in Georgia, the weather is more similar to Massachusetts. The highest temperature they've ever recorded there was 84 degrees.
And the lowest was negative 27.
Yeah.
Negative 27. So this used to be a fire watch center. And so there's actually, I mean, not that we could see, but they told us that down below is like apartments for the rangers to stay, because there were times you weren't able to come and go.
Yeah.
And then there actually is a fire watch tower that is still in use. Lots of like radio signal things and all kinds of stuff there and telescopes, but you couldn't go in that section. But you were able to go to an observation tower that was like a 360
Yeah,
view.
you would walk all the way around it,
and it would show you like that's North Carolina, that's the town of whatever, and like model the hills and the valleys and things. It was amazing
I never got to see South
what you could see.
Carolina.
So supposedly 4 states,
the day we got there, there happened to be smoke from fires in
Canada.
of all places, that has made its way to the East Coast. So it was really hazy that day, unfortunately.
Still really
but
pretty.
It was really pretty. Then another place that we were told to visit, which we've come to realize is mostly for locals. There's not a lot of tourists that go there. Was Helton Creek Falls. The driveway to get to Helton Creek Falls is less than a mile from the entrance to Vogel. You just go up the mountain a little bit. It's on the left. It is a very narrow road. It's paved for a while where there's a lot of houses, and then you hit the national forest and it goes to gravel. Go slow and just have faith that it's worth it.
We promise. And it is not a bad hike. So you'll come eventually
Once
to
you
like
get to
some
a parking
parking area, and you'll see, and it's a short hike. I mean, 2/10 of a mile, I think. It's
down some steps
but it's
and
all
then around.
it's all been very well maintained. So it's steps built into the edge of the forest, and then the normal steps, platforms at the bottom of the water and at the top. I'll say probably no matter when you go, it's cold. The water's cold. Clara slipped and kind of went kerplunk, and it was cold.
Yeah. So it's actually 2 falls. You reach a point where you can go down and be at the base of the bottom fall. I think that they said that was about a 30 to 40 foot waterfall. Very pretty to look up. Then you can go back up, and there's an observation deck further up for the bigger fall. I think they said that one is an 80 foot fall. Stay on the trail. Don't. You can tell where some people had kind of gone around the boardwalk and were getting down in the water.
It's so slippery, so slippery. Where we were was the flat at the very base of both falls, and it was
she still
flat,
slipped.
and she wasn't even in the water, and she was on dry, and she slipped and got soaked. So if you had been in the water at the top of one of those, I mean, it's life changing, like fall. Like we were at the very bottom, and that's where we, put our feet in the water a little bit, or I put my feet in the water, and just in all situations, stay on the trail, stay in the boundary. They're there for a reason. Somebody wiser and
there was a story about last year. Apparently, some guy decided he was going to try and climb up the rocks, slipped and fell, busted his head open, and died. So just don't do it. Just
stay on the trails.
Stay on the trails. Also, speaking of trails and waterfalls, right here in the park, if you do the walk around the
lake that we can't pronounce,
at the dam, there is kind of a little steep trek down and around,
short but steep,
to a waterfall that was created when they built the dam. They did a stair step,
and it was built to protect the trout that live in that, to make it cold water.
Right.
To pull the cold water off the bottom.
And to oxygenate the
water for the trout.
For the trout. So, well worth taking. So you go down this walkway, and it kind of leads around down to a set of stairs that leads to a deck out where you can see up the stair step waterfall.
It's beautiful.
It's beautiful. And to think that these guys in the 30s built this without modern equipment. I mean, yes, there were some tractors and bulldozers, but not
really,
the stuff,
not like what we think
not the
of.
stuff that we had.
And the brochure, and so we keep debating about this. The brochure literally says that they dug the 42 feet deep, 27 square by hand. And so it's debatable. Like,
I mean, obviously they had to have built the dam, so they didn't dig the entire thing all the way down, but they obviously
it's still like
it's still a lot of work.
Still a lot of work.
And so, not only do they have the camping sites at Vogel, there's also a lot of tent sites. The tent sites are kind of on their own loop, except for two at the end of our row.
And then they're past us with some primitive sites as well that were like really up there in the woods.
Yes. So and then they have a number of cabins. They have various different styles of cabins. Some are log cabins, some are a little bit more modern cabins, some are 1 bedroom, 2 bedroom,
up to 3 bedroom. I mean,
some of them are a little bit of a hike. Some of them you could park right next to.
And some are handicap accessible. So I mean, it's a variety of all the things.
Check out their website. They'll show you all about the cabins if that's something that's interesting you. I'm kind of thinking our next trip we might try and do one of the cabins, just because taking the camper that far through those mountains would be a little more challenge than just going up and staying in a cabin.
And it'd be fun just to do something different too.
Yeah, so those cabins were nice.
We're getting a thumbs up from the kids. They're like, yeah, cabin. Especially because we could manage to do one that was like kind of tucked up in the woods.
So, and then the weekend after we were there, they had their annual kids fishing rodeo.
Which apparently is a huge deal. Kids come from all over the state. People have been booking it. They've been coming since their kids were, tiny. The first 300 kids get a T-shirt. So that means to me they're expected more than 300 kids. It was no entry fee. There was a $5 parking pass for your family, and that's for any Georgia park. Then but you could borrow a pole, and it sounded like it was a really, really neat event. So the day before that, which we actually did get to participate in, they had a fish release from the wildlife fisheries people.
So the wildlife fisheries people brought in a truck with all these rainbow trout.
A truck full of trout.
Yeah, full of rainbow trout. They scoop them up, put them in 5-gallon buckets, and have the kids go over to the creek. And they had little areas where it was kind of almost like a little mini pond, and they would dump so many trout into this little area, and then you go a little further up and there's another one, and they stocked the creek for
all the way up. So
the next day's
so
fishing
all
rodeo.
These fish were in the pond to be caught. It's really cool.
It's kind of a neat
so they have a big pavilion they do have events during the summer, like Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Really, they didn't have much events for the week. So they had a guy playing music on Saturday nights in the pavilion. They had nature things during the week, and
I'm sure once they get into the summer, they probably will be adding some more stuff.
Yeah,
this is just right at the beginning of the summer.
But they have a big amphitheater kind of up the hill past the CCC Museum, and they had events there, different things, learning about the park, learn about that. They also have a junior ranger camps if you're local to the area. Oh my word, what a cool thing to get to do. It was a great state park. I mean, it absolutely lives up to the hype, and that it is the #1 park in Georgia. So it makes Clara wanted to make sure everybody knew that if you do have a furry friend, dog, I guess really, not just any furry friend, but if you have a dog, they do have a stick library, which was a unique thing. So there was just like a box.
A box of sticks.
And box of sticks, so you could,
Chewy bones.
and chewy bones and other things to kind of like the little free libraries, and they had those at the bathhouses, but they had a stick library, which was kind of fun and unique.
Yes.
And it was a unique park. We really enjoyed
We
it.
really
I think
enjoyed it.
trying to do it again, or do a cabin, or do it a different season.
Yes.
Would be a lot of fun. But there was great things to do. There, we did just the hike around the lake, but I did hear from one of our neighbors that they did the bear trail. It was bear something trail, and I'll look it up. But it was 4 miles, and she said the first mile was difficult.
Yeah.
But then it kind of leveled out, and there was a viewing platform or a viewing area that you could see down into the park and see the whole thing. And that while it was 4 miles, it wasn't that bad, and they were grandparenty age. They had enjoyed it and felt like it was a good hike. So if we'd been there another couple of days, we would have tackled that one as well.
Yeah. There's a lot of great hikes, a lot of waterfalls in the area. So that's another reason I kind of want to go back, because I'd love to explore some
Well, and
more.
even like downtown Blairsville was really cute, and lots of sweet little shops, and
Yes.
and excited for their tour. I mean, they're a tourist town.
Yes.
Those little downtowns. The courthouse had a great museum. There was another like farm education center that we would like to explore at some point as well.
Yeah.
So there's a lot to do. You could definitely make a longer trip out of it.
Yes. And shout out to, what was the
Keene and Company Keene
Creations and Company. She was super nice. Neat little store, kind of just off of the square, kind of down around a corner. Go check her out. She's got a lot of neat kind of fun things with different vendors that provide.
And it's just a really neat space.
Yes.
There was a great bookstore. There was a great little gift shops. There's a lot of
they're
unique
absolutely
experiences.
Yeah,
Oh, and
downtown
Sunshine Grocery on the way back in. We forgot about Sunshine Grocery. So it's kind of a staple. It's almost like a little roadside grocery stand, but he's a famous photographer, and they run the little grocery, and we got an amazing tomato there. We got some world famous peanuts.
The boiled peanuts is something to see, and there's 3 big pots. They just keep going all the time.
But his photography, almost an art gallery there with his photography work in these handmade frames that were just stunning. And some of his work was on display at Vogel State Park even.
They said some of his photography is actually in the Atlanta Hartsfield Airport.
I wouldn't doubt it.
Yeah.
It's stunning work. And but they're just really great people, and they have beautiful and wonderful smelling like goat milk soaps and all kinds of fun.
Anything you need from the
Plus
store.
moon pies and all kinds of other stuff.
So neat store, neat place. The mountains are always special to get up to. If you get a chance, I highly recommend getting up there and exploring around Blairsville and Vogel State Park. It's well worth it.